Welcome to this edition of PLMA Live. I'm Jodi Daley.
And I'm Brian Sharoff.
You know, for many years, it's been conventional retail wisdom that most shoppers come to the store and make their buying decisions as they walk the aisles. A study by the Point of Purchase Advertising Institute in 1995 calculated that as much as 70% of all purchasing decisions are made in store. This research on impulse buying has been the basis for many retailer strategies. Well, then last year came a new report by NPD Group, which argued that 94% of households prepare lists of what they need and 74% of those rarely bought items not on the list. Well, if this kind of behavior is the norm, then much of the in-store effort may be wasted. So which study is right? How do consumers really make their buying decisions? PLMA commissioned Buxton Research, one of the most respected market research companies, to find out and to see how it relates to the promotion of store brands.
Buxton's research was completed earlier this year and provided some surprises. It also illuminated what retailers can do to increase store brand sales. Here's the gist of what Buxton found. First, consumers do keep lists. 2 out of 3 shoppers regularly prepare a list before going to the supermarket. The majority put between 10 and 20 items on their list, and about 1 out of 3 actually put a specific brand on the list. But even if they don't name the brand in advance, more than half say they have a particular brand in mind when they go to the store. But then something happens when the consumer arrives at the supermarket. Only 24% buy the brand without hesitation. 3 out of 4 look to see what other options are available.
So they are impulse buyers after all.
Not exactly. They are experienced, savvy, and in a sense, methodical buyers. Price comparison is very important, but so is information on the label, and they want to know what other brands or products are available.
All of that in a few seconds?
Sometimes they spend more time, but as Buxton points out, they are open to persuasion. They're aware of store brands. More than half feel that they are more aware than a year ago, and more than half say that if a particular brand is not available, they will buy the retailer's store brand instead. Only a very small percentage say that they would go to another retailer if the product they want is out of stock.
Well, do consumers behave the same way when they go to a drug chain or a mass merchandiser?
No. Less reliance on lists, more reading of labels. Fewer shoppers put brand names on their list in the first place.
What do Buxton's conclusions mean to retailers? Well, we asked Andy Abraham, who worked on marketing and private label programs for Roundy's and then SuperValu. Welcome, Andy.
Hi, Jodi.
So tell me, Andy, how would you summarize the state of store brands among retailers today?
I would say the state of store brands is incredibly strong. I think over the past few years, the growth has been quite noticeable and created value for the customer and the consumer. And ultimately, it'll continue to grow in the future as well.
Well, do you see store brands continuing to grow?
Again, for those retailers who support the program and who continue to grow the program, they've recognized it drives loyalty to the store. And by doing that, which is one of the few ways you can drive loyalty to the store, they've seen their business grow, they've seen their sales grow, they've seen customer count continue to grow, or at least maintain in a competitive environment we have today. For those who are simply creating a Me Too program or simply doing store brands, private brands the way they always have, they've seen their customer count erode and they haven't taken full advantage of a private label program or building a private label program that will drive loyalty to the store.
Okay, how important do you think in-store theater is to maximizing store brands?
I think in-store theater is part of a broader array of the consumer in-store experience. And to that end, I think in-store theater is incredibly important. Retailers have traditionally done things like sampling and put private label products on the end caps. But ultimately, I think they haven't taken advantage of utilizing cross-category and cross-company promotions in order to build their brands much the way they do with branded products. So today, when a product is on end aisle display, for instance, it might just be one company's product or one product itself, a can of peas. But they haven't taken advantage of the cross-selling opportunities to create a full meal solution, let's say, out of private label products and the total value that that would bring to the consumer. So there are a number of things that the retailers could do today to continue to enhance their private label program, and that in-store experience, the in-store theater part of that simply being the sampling or the way it's promoted or even the way it's shelved in the aisles.
Andy, you know, the Buxton study says that consumers come with a list, but most shoppers are open to persuasion once they walk in the aisles. So what can retailers do to persuade consumers about their store brands?
So in fact, that's right. Close to 3/4 of consumers who may come with a specific brand on their list, but are certainly open to picking a different brand or the private label. In fact, the private label more often than another brand. The biggest thing that a retailer could do, though, to drive their private brand program is tell their customers about it and get that product in front of their customers and make it part of what they do day in and day out. It must be part of the fiber of what they are doing to drive loyalty to their store. There are 3 main ways a retailer can differentiate itself from the competition. The first is by having a great perishables program, always ready and always fresh. The second is through the in-store experience, and whether that's customer service or the in-store theater. The third is through a great private brands program. Ultimately, the retailers need to make sure they are able to tell their customers and tell their consumers consistently about the great quality products and the great value that those products that either carry the name that's over their door or whatever brand names they choose. They need to be able to tell their consumers why that is the real value in coming to their specific store.
Andy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jodi.
Well, one retailer who earned a reputation for persuading shoppers to switch to their own retailer brands was Loblaws in Canada. Their influence on how supermarkets here in the U.S. marketed store brands was substantial. Tom Stevens served as Vice President of Marketing for Loblaws International Merchants. Good morning, Tom. Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Jodi. Good to see you again.
Now, the Buxton study indicates that consumers can be channeled to store brands, but retailers have to kind of put their mind to it. What was your experience at Loblaws?
I think in those days, private label store brands were not anything as well understood as they are today. So you were talking about a lot of groundbreaking effort to get the products and the idea of the products and the brands into the consumers' minds. So a lot of that was done by very extensive media, print and television. And Dave Nichol, who was the face and the whole name behind the program, he was on television. He was in your home every single night of the week for many, many weeks of the year. So the experience was based on a lot of media exposure backed up by an equivalent amount of exposure and display of the products in the stores.
Well, what would you say is the single most important factor which determines the consumer's decision?
I think the single most important factor of any consumer decision about purchasing one product or another is the relationship of the consumer to that brand and that product, the trust that they have in it, their perception of the value and the quality of the product. So I think it's all about trust and perception. Those are the real single most important factors.
Okay, let's talk about President's Choice. Now, that was built around a definite concept that the company president was personally involved in the selection of the private label product. So how significant was that message?
At the time, it was extremely significant because Dave Nichol, as president, the visible president to the consumer, was on television every night in your home, talking to you in your living room or your dining room, wherever your television was, telling you about how he was traveling the world searching and looking for these products. It was extremely important that the president was the visible representation of where the products came from. It's not to say that one can't achieve the same results today without having a visible president, but at the time it was absolutely the way it was done, and it made a lot of sense and it really worked.
Tom, thank you so much. Always good to see you.
Thanks, Jodi. It's a pleasure.
Now, store brand retailers aren't the only ones that are interested in how consumers really shop. Campbell's Soup Company recently finished a study that found that most consumers make their decisions before entering the supermarket. You can be sure that national brands will be making their push to persuade shoppers as well. Al Heller recently interviewed the director of shopper insights at Campbell Soup, Phil McGee. Hi, Al.
Hi, Jodi.
What did the Campbell Soup report say?
This is really an intriguing piece of shopper marketing research, Jodi. Phil McGee, the Campbell Soup Director of Shopper Insights, told me during a recent interview I had with him for an article in CPG Matters, said that he dismisses the long-held belief that shoppers make 70% of their buying decisions at the shelf. Instead, he said, shoppers make 80% of their decisions to fill a specific food consumption mission before they enter a supermarket.
Well, what happens when consumers are actually in the store?
Well, Jodi, what Phil McGee said sets the bar very high for food marketers to make their on-pack and in-store messages crystal clear and highly selective. Basically, he says, shoppers fixate on very little of what they encounter. McGee pointed to scientific literature that shows people are so overloaded by stimuli when they shop that they actually deselect 99% of what they encounter. Of the remaining 1%, shoppers consciously process only 1/20th of what they see.
Okay, so where does price fit into the shopper's thinking once they are in the store?
Jodi, actually, value and price are what shoppers think about before the trip. McGee calls the store they choose to shop in their proxy for price. This means it's where they feel they'll generally find acceptable prices for filling their food mission that day. And once they're in the store, they tend not to nickel and dime every selection. Price is really far down the list of what shoppers fixate on when they see packaging and shelving in the store. Of course, this doesn't mean price is unimportant. It clearly is, especially in this stubbornly tough economy for so many households. It does mean price was decided on early, during the list making, the coupon clipping, the deciding where to shop, and deciding which brands and which private label products to buy.
Al, thanks so much.
Thank you, Jodi.
So, Brian, what can we expect?
I think it's clear that both Buxton and Campbell's sense that consumer behavior is changing. The days of pulling the shopper into the store with television advertising is over. The days of bombarding the shopper with hype and graphics in the store may be winding down too. Retailers have a unique opportunity to differentiate themselves and build a relationship with the shopper. Some are doing it. Some are still struggling.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Brian. And for PLMA Live, I'm Jodi Daley. See you next time.